We will now start with creating the navbar and the breadcrumb, which is part of every page that we're going to build. If we resize the browser window, we'll see that the navbar collapses for smaller devices. And we can expand the content by toggling this burger button. So the content that is being hidden and showed is this search input field with a button. So we need to make this functionality work. Here we see the breadcrumb, which is very simple on this page, but for example on the post page we can see that it contains more items. Alright, let's get started. Here we have a basic installation of Bulma. We see that we have the character set being set in this meta tag. Here is the responsive meta tag. We have the title set to home online forum, and then we are linking to the style sheet of Bulma, which is placed in this CSS folder. So we can just get started right away. We'll start with creating a nav element for our navbar. Give it the classes navbar, and to give it a color we use the modifier class is primary. For accessibility we have the role attribute with the value navigation, and the area label attribute with the value main navigation. This is used for screen readers and search robots and so on. There is no visible output of this. Inside of this we'll maintain our content, give it a max width and center it by wrapping it in a div tag with the class container. Then we can create our navbar brand, which is the name of the forum. So we add a div tag with the class navbar brand, and inside this we add an anchor tag leading to the index page, which is our current page here, and we need to give the class navbar item to make it have the proper styling. Then we'll close our anchor tag again. After this we'll add our button, burger button. So we add the button tag and give it the class button, and then the specific class navbar burger to make it have the right style. We'll give this the ID nav toggle, we'll use the ID later, and also the data target attribute, which we'll use later, and give it the value nav menu. Inside of our button we'll create 3 empty span elements. This is used to provide each of the 3 lines in the burger button. Alright, so after our navbar brand we'll create a new div tag with the class navbar menu. We'll give it the ID nav menu. Notice this is the same value as we were referring up to here. This is because we need to implement the JavaScript functionality later on. Then inside of this we add a new div tag with the class navbar end. This is to position the content to the right side, the end of our navbar. And then to get the proper styling we also need to use the navbar item class again. We need to wrap that around all of our content in the navbar. Now we can create our small form. So we add the form tag and then a div tag with the class field. And since we want to make the button be part of the input or right next to, we also add the modifier class has add-ons, like so. Then we add a new div tag with the class control. This is for our input, and our modifier class is expanded, so it will take up the full width for certain breakpoints if the parent container is wide. We'll see that in effect later. Then we'll create our input tag. We'll give it the type attribute with the value search. give it the name attribute with the value search. This is to store the data when submitting to the server. We won't really need this, but we'll just use it because it's best practice, so we won't forget it. Then we add the class input. We give it the ID search. We also give it the placeholder attribute with the value search. And finally, for accessibility, the area label attribute with the value search. Then we add a new div tag with the class control. And this time, this will be for our submit button. So we add the button tag with the type attribute with the value submit. Then we add a class with the button, and the modifier class is info to give it the right color. We give the button the text search, and we'll close our button tag again. Alright, let's now save this and take a look in the browser. Select the right tab and refresh. We can see that we have everything centered and with the max width, because we use the container class. We can see that this content collapses for smaller breakpoints. The button doesn't work yet, but we'll fix that in a moment. And we can see that the colors are right and the links are working. Great. Now, to make this menu appear for smaller breakpoints, we need to add the class is active, like so, and also to our button we need to add the class is active to have the right animation. So we need to do that with JavaScript. Also, please notice that we use this is expanded modifier class. If we didn't use it, it won't take up the full width. So this is just because I think it looks better. So that's why we use that. Alright, now let's back to the toggling of these is active classes here. So we'll scroll down to the bottom of our document. Then we'll add a script tag with the type attribute with the value text/JavaScript. And now we'll create some custom JavaScript for this. So first we want to create an event listener for the document. This is so that we'll wait until the document has fully loaded, or the DOM content has loaded, like so. Inside this, we'll create the code that we want to run. So first, we want to create a variable called Navbar burger, and this should be the element with the ID nav toggle. That's what we created up here. Then we want to add a new event listener to this Navbar burger that we just created with the variable here. So we create another event listener. We'll listen for a click event. And when the user clicks, first we'll have a new variable target, which will look for the Navbar burger and take the data attribute called target, so the data target attribute, and then it will create one more variable target, and it will get the element with ID of target. So what happens here is it looks for the Navbar burger with the ID nav toggle, and then it takes the value of the data target attribute, which is nav menu. So the target here is an element with the ID of nav menu which is the menu. Now we can apply the toggling of classes. So for the Navbar burger, we want to toggle the class is active. And for our target, which is our menu, we want to toggle the same class is active. Let's save this and take a look in the browser. We'll refresh. Now when I click the burger, it toggles the content here. Great. We'll now continue with creating the breadcrumb. So right after our nav element here, we create a section tag with the class section to provide the correct spacing. Then we add div tag with the class container, once again to center the content and give it a max width. Then we create a new nav tag with the class breadcrumb, and for accessibility, the area label attribute with the value breadcrumbs. Like so. Inside of this, create an unordered list, and right now it only contains one list item for this page since it's the index page. So we give the list item the class is active, and then we add an anchor tag, the area current attribute, the value page. This is for accessibility again. And then we give it the text board index. And then we close our anchor tag again, and then we close our list item again. Let's go back to our page and refresh. Here we can see that we have our breadcrumb, and we can see that this looks identical with the finished project. So we will now go to the next lecture.